You may not know this, but across the United States, some towns were abandoned because of economic collapse, others because of nature's fury. But a few were deserted for something else, something people still hesitate to name out loud. From a burning coal seam in Pennsylvania to the fog-shrouded coastlines of Alaska, America hides scars that no map wants to print. And tonight, we'll walk straight into them. The 10 most mysterious and haunting towns in America, where the so-called forgotten nightmares aren't legends, but living remnants of history. Number 10. Stull, Kansas. At first glance, Stull looks like the sort of place your grandma might paint on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Rolling Kansas fields, wheat swaying under a lazy breeze, and a tiny 19th century cemetery nestled beside a church ruin. There's nothing dramatic here, just the hum of grasshoppers, a rusted fence, and a few gravestones leaning like sleepy old men. Yet somehow this postcard-perfect calm became one of America's strangest legends. It began in the 1970s when a student newspaper at the University of Kansas printed a short Halloween piece claiming that Stull Cemetery was one of the 7 gateways to hell. It was meant as satire, college kids having fun, but the story spread like wildfire. Each retelling grew darker, each visitor more convinced something was lurking behind the broken chapel walls. Soon, Halloween night became a police operation. Officers from Douglas County now blocked the narrow road every October 31st because thrill seekers kept sneaking in, vandalizing graves and lighting candles in the ruins. There's never been a recorded tragedy here, no official ghost, no missing person, just countless reports of strange lights, cold gusts, and whispers that sound like someone calling your name when you know you're alone. What's eerie isn't what happens, it's how silent everything feels. The air hangs heavy. The metal gate rattles even when there's no wind. Moss grows thick over names no one remembers. Locals say the worst sound isn't the wind or the creak of the fence, it's your own breathing when you realize the entire place feels like it's listening. But this isn't really a story about demons. It's about how a rumor can curse a town. Stull became a victim of the internet's imagination, like someone mislabeled a jar of salt as ghost pepper, and the whole world decided to taste it. Reporters, paranormal shows, even pop stars joked about it, and the town's name stuck as shorthand for something dark. Reality got buried under clickbait. So here's the real question. Would you risk a trespassing ticket or worse, just to snap a blurry selfie next to an ordinary gravestone? The sheriff's office doesn't think it's funny. Neither do the families whose ancestors rest there. The scariest thing about Stull might not be the ghosts. It's how easily we forget respect when chasing a thrill. Because if one student rumor could turn a sleepy prairie into a haunted destination, imagine what happens when the next story begins with real tragedy. Number 9. Dudleytown, Connecticut. Autumn in New England is a postcard brought to life. Crimson leaves, whispering birches, and sunlight that looks like liquid honey. Nestled within those hills once stood a tiny colonial village called Dudleytown, a name that sounds innocent enough until you realize it's been wiped off every modern map. What remains is a patch of forest so thick it seems to drink in the daylight itself. Locals call it the Dark Entry Forest, and for decades it's been synonymous with one word: cursed. The legend begins with the Dudley family, English settlers who supposedly carried a dark curse across the Atlantic. One story says a relative was executed for treason in the 1500s, another that they angered the crown, and God never forgave them. Generations later, misfortune followed their descendants to Connecticut. Strange illnesses, sudden madness, and disappearances that no one could explain. Whether you believe the curse or not, it's hard to deny that something about this forest feels off. Visitors who've snuck past the no trespassing signs often describe the same thing, an unnatural quiet like the woods are holding their breath. Some say the air feels heavy, thick with moisture and the scent of wet leaves. The ground squelches underfoot and every gust of wind seems to whisper through the trees as though someone or something is watching. But that's where the story turns dark. Dudleytown isn't abandoned, it's private property, and the owners have had enough of ghost hunters and thrill seekers. The Dark Entry Forest Association, which manages the land, closed it off entirely. Police patrols now guard the trailheads, issuing trespassing citations to those who cross the line. Once, curiosity brought dozens of cars on moonlit nights. Now the silence is enforced by law. The irony? The more forbidden it became, the stronger the myth grew. And maybe that's the real curse here, the razor-thin line between curiosity and respect. Dudleytown has become a mirror of how we deal with collective memory. We romanticize the past until it bites back. People crave the chill of a haunted tale, yet forget that every story has owners, boundaries, and consequences. So before you pack your flashlight and your bravado, remember this: courage doesn't grant you legal immunity. The only thing waiting past those keep out signs is a citation, not salvation. Because when myth meets federal law, things get more complicated than any ghost story. And that's exactly what leads us to the next number on this list. Number 8, Helltown, Ohio. You'd never expect a place called Helltown to sit inside one of Ohio's most beautiful valleys. The hills of Boston Township roll like green waves, maple trees ignite into gold each fall, and deer wander through trails now. Marked as part of Cuyahoga Valley National Park, it's a postcard of peace until you realize this paradise was once emptied by force. In the 1970s, the federal government used eminent domain to buy up hundreds of homes to create the park. Families were told to leave, sometimes with only weeks' notice. What remained were hollow shells of houses and streets that led nowhere. And like all American ghost stories, the silence quickly found a name: Helltown. People driving through the area began spinning tales about why the town had vanished. They said toxic waste had been dumped by the so-called TNT company, that the forest was haunted, that a cult held rituals in the woods. Teenagers claimed a haunted school bus sat rusting by the roadside, its ghostly passengers still visible on foggy nights. Others swore they'd heard a woman crying near the Crybaby Bridge. The government's road closed signs only made things worse. Proof in the minds of locals that something sinister had to be hidden behind them. The truth was simpler and somehow sadder. The houses were bulldozed not because of the devil, but because of bureaucracy. A grand plan to build the national park stalled, funds dried up, homes stood empty, windows shattered, doors left ajar. The valley became a portrait of America's Rust Belt hollowing out, places left behind, not by ghosts, but by policy. Visitors still wander the trails, searching for the fabled bus or for some trace of evil. What they find is a thick stillness, the smell of wet soil, and the faint sound of a freight train echoing from miles away, like a whisper from the past asking what was lost. That's the irony of Helltown. It's not hellish at all, just heartbreakingly vacant. The myths filled the emptiness that government planning created. It's a reminder that when people can't make sense of loss, they invent stories to explain it. Maybe the curse wasn't supernatural at all, it was economic. So if you ever find yourself there, staring at the road closed sign and wondering what lies beyond, know this: you'll mostly find emptiness, the kind that hums quietly, patient as the trees. But emptiness can take many shapes. And in the next place, it's literal. No people, just desert and sand. Number 7, Rhyolite, Nevada. At first glance, Rhyolite feels like a dream caught between sand and sky. The Nevada sun paints everything gold: the desert hills, the ghostly ruins, even the glass walls of the old bottle house that still shimmer like captured starlight. It's beautiful, too beautiful. But what happened here turned that beauty into a monument of failure. In 1904, fortune seekers struck gold in the Bullfrog Hills. Within months, tents became saloons, shacks became banks, and Rhyolite was declared the next great city of the West. At its height, it had electricity, newspapers, a stock exchange, and an opera house. The desert glowed with ambition. People said the streets were paved with opportunity, and in a way, they were. But then came the panic of 1907 and everything started to crumble. Investors fled, the mines dried up, Within a few short years, the Queen City of the desert became a hollow shell. Now, when you walk through its remains, the silence is almost alive. The Great Bank stands like a skeleton, brick walls intact, but its windows are hollow eyes staring into eternity. Each gust of desert wind wails through them like a ghost exhaling. Beneath your boots, gravel crunches sharply, the only reminder you're still real. That's when the story turns dark. Rhyolite's ruins whisper of a single truth. Greed ages faster than gold. What was once a boomtown became a stage set for decay. The bottle house, built entirely from beer bottles, isn't just an oddity. It's an accidental sculpture of excess, sparkling under the sun like a warning label. The town's collapse wasn't fate, it was fever. Too many people chasing too few dreams. As one historian said, Rhyolite wore a designer coat on a broken mannequin. Beautiful from a distance, hollow up close. Tourists arrive every year chasing the thrill of ruins. Some climb onto crumbling walls for the perfect photo, but rangers warn them sternly, don't climb the ruins. The stones don't have insurance. The message lands harder than it sounds. Rhyolite may be dead, but its dangers are still alive. And yet, at sunset, the place still glows. The air turns red, shadows stretch long, and for a moment, you can almost hear laughter echoing from a century ago. Then the wind returns, sweeping it all away. From this scorched desert of broken dreams, we rise toward the frozen peaks, where time itself has stopped breathing. Number 6, Bannack, Montana. At first sight, Bannack feels like a town that simply paused. The wooden sidewalks still creak. The Mead Hotel still stands tall, its windows staring blankly across the valley. The old schoolhouse, church, and saloon all seem ready to reopen, if only someone would strike gold again. Each July, during Bannack days, laughter fills the ghost streets once more. Families in bonnets and boots reenact the 1860s gold rush, and for a weekend it almost feels alive. But once the sun sets, the silence creeps back in, and that's when the story turns dark. Bannack began in 1862 when gold was discovered in Grasshopper Creek. Within a year, it exploded into life. Montana's first capital, home to over 3,000 hopefuls chasing fortune. Yet like every boomtown built on golden dust, the glitter didn't last. The mines bled dry, the merchants left, and Bannack froze in time. By the early 20th century, it was no longer a city, it was a shell, quietly surrendering to the cold. The Mead Hotel became the ghostly heart of that surrender. Visitors say you can still hear faint footsteps on the second floor, where a girl in a blue dress is said to wander, forever waiting for someone who never returned. Historians can't confirm her story, but when the hallway floor groans under your shoes, it's easy to believe. Sunlight slices through dusty windows, turning floating moats into golden ghosts. The air smells like pine and memory. Bannack isn't eerie because of what happened. It's eerie because it stopped happening. The place feels like an unfinished sentence. Each abandoned room is a question mark. What did they leave behind? Where did they go? The real answer is less romantic than legend. The gold rush was America's credit bubble of the 19th century. Easy loans, reckless bets, sudden collapse. Bannack was left holding the debt and the wind. Tourists come now with cameras, influencers hunting for viral ghost clips, but rangers remind them sharply, this is a state park, not a TikTok dare floor. The ghosts here aren't props, they're warnings carved in wood. So walk softly. Let the silence speak, because when history goes to sleep, it dreams in dust and echoes. And as we leave this frozen chapter of Montana, our next story takes us to a place where history didn't freeze. It burned. Number 5. Bodie, California. Bodie doesn't feel abandoned, it feels paused. The wooden town still stands in the cold desert wind, more than 100 buildings frozen mid-story. A general store stocked with cans from the 1930s, school books scattered on desks, curtains faded by time but not torn. This is arrested decay, a style of preservation where everything is kept exactly as it was when life stopped. You don't rebuild, you just keep the ghosts from falling apart. And that's what Bodie is, an open-air museum of unfinished sentences. But what happened here wasn't poetic, it was brutal. Founded in 1859 during California's gold rush fever, Bodie once roared with over 10,000 people, 20 saloons, and enough gunfire to make the nights glow. Then came the Great Fire of 1932. Flames devoured most of the town in a single night. What the blaze didn't take, time did. By the 1940s, Bodie was a skeleton on the mountain. Yet one thing survived, its curse. The so-called Bodie curse began with tourists who couldn't resist taking souvenirs, an old nail, a bottle, a coin. Soon, letters began arriving at the ranger station, written by people begging forgiveness. "Ever since I took this rock," one wrote, "everything has gone wrong." Others mailed back their stolen trinkets, describing illnesses, breakups, accidents. Park rangers keep hundreds of these letters on file, a paper trail of regret. Whether the curse is real or not doesn't matter anymore. It became the town's conscience. Walk through Bodie streets, and you'll feel it, that uneasy quiet. The windows seem to follow you. You can almost hear laughter echoing behind the Mead Hotel's glass or boots crunching the frozen dirt. Each building looks as though someone left just 5 minutes ago, but never came back. That's when the story turns dark. The truth is Bodie's curse is less about spirits than about morality. It's a fable dressed as folklore, a gentle punishment for human greed, the kind that whispers, "You can't pocket history." It's the community's way of teaching respect, not fear. In a world obsessed with taking, Bodie dares you to leave things be. So here's the warning, carved in wind. Memories aren't souvenirs. Leave the past where it belongs, untouched, unowned. Because from these brittle wooden walls to the cold brass signs, Bodie stands as a mirror. It shows us what happens when desire outlives purpose. And from this cursed silence of relics, we move to a new kind of warning, one written not in whispers, but in steel. Number 4, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Point Pleasant is the kind of small town that could have stayed a quiet postcard, sitting gracefully by the Ohio River where fishermen still cast their lines and children feed ducks in the afternoon light. Every September it bursts into laughter for the Mothman Festival. Parades, costumes, a museum filled with wings and red-eyed mannequins. It's part spooky, part silly, an ode to one of America's strangest legends. But beneath the laughter, there's a shadow that never left. In November 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, plunging cars and buses into the icy river below. 46 lives ended in less than a minute. The town that once echoed with factory whistles fell silent. And here's where myth and memory collided, because in the months before the tragedy, locals swore they saw something impossible. A winged creature with glowing red eyes perched on rooftops gliding over the bridge, watching. The Mothman, they called it. After the collapse, the sighting stopped. The bridge was rebuilt. The legend wasn't. It took root in the town's soul. Even today, some say the creature was a warning, others say it was simply coincidence. But the story lingers, fluttering between folklore and grief like a moth trapped between windows. Walk along the riverbank at dusk and you'll understand why it still haunts people. The water moves slow and dark, reflecting lights from the new bridge above. The air is heavy with the kind of quiet that makes every sound feel alive. The chain of a boat clinking, the groan of steel expanding in the cold, the sigh of wind across the water. That's when the story turns dark. The real horror of Point Pleasant isn't the monster, it's the metaphor. The Silver Bridge fell because of a single weak link in an I-bar suspension chain, a tiny crack that grew until everything gave way. A town lost its faith overnight. Old infrastructure is like an overstretched rubber band. Snap once, and the illusion of safety snaps with it. And yet Point Pleasant rebuilt not just a bridge, but a ritual of remembrance. The Mothman statue stands in the town square, half guardian, half warning, a reminder that sometimes fear itself becomes a monument. So, here's the warning whispered by the river. Don't mistake remembrance for courage games. Some stories are meant to be honored, not reenacted. Because if the omen here was a bridge in the next town, the earth itself will start to breathe. Number 3. Lake Shawnee, Amusement Park, West Virginia. At first glance, Lake Shawnee feels harmless, like a forgotten playground that nature quietly reclaimed. Rusted swings sway in the wind, creaking with the rhythm of ghosts. The Ferris wheel, its paint peeled to bone, still turns slowly when the breeze catches just right, as if remembering children who once waved from its height. Today it's a historical tour site, complete with guided ghost walks and controlled paranormal nights. The irony? The laughter that once filled this park is now sold as part of the attraction. But the past here isn't a costume, it's carved into the dirt. The park opened in the 1920s for families of coal miners seeking a slice of joy. Yet beneath its cheerful music, tragedy had already taken root. During the 1960s, a series of mishaps unfolded, one by the lake, another near the swings. After that, laughter faded and the park slipped into decades of silence. The park shut down soon after, unable to outlive the whispers. Years later, when developers tried to revive the site, they uncovered something even darker. Native American burial grounds, complete with children's skeletons. The air, locals say, feels metallic, thick and heavy like before a thunderstorm. Tour guides speak in hushed tones. Visitors often report hearing laughter when the wind picks up. And sometimes the swings move even when the air is still. That's when the story turns dark. Because Lake Shawnee isn't just haunted. It's layered. A story built on another story, each one ending in loss. It's the American dream in miniature. People investing hope into a plot of land already full of ghosts. The metaphor writes itself. The miners built this park as a brief escape from hardship, a ticket to happiness. But dreams that cheap often cost more than they promise. Lake Shawnee became a symbol of small-town hope turned into small-town haunting. Proof that you can pave over bones, but you can't silence them. Even now, visitors line up for tours, clutching flashlights like talismans. But the park's caretakers are clear. Come only when it's open. Don't sneak in. Because the last thing you want is to trade curiosity for a trip to the ER. So if you ever find yourself near Princeton, West Virginia, and you hear a faint squeak in the wind, don't follow it. Some rides aren't meant to start again. And while Lake Shawnee whispers through the trees, the next place doesn't whisper at all. It burns. Number 2, Centralia, Pennsylvania. At first glance, Centralia looks like any other sleepy Pennsylvania town, except there are no children on the streets, no lights in the windows, and no sound but the wind, whistling through broken foundations. The ground, warm to the touch, exhales faint wisps of smoke that twist like breath in cold air. It's been this way for more than 60 years. Once, Centralia was a proud mining community, a blue-collar town that thrived on coal, laughter, and the rhythm of trains. But in 1962, a small fire lit in a landfill drifted into abandoned mine tunnels. No one imagined it would spread until it did. The coal seam beneath the town caught fire, and what began as routine cleanup turned into a catastrophe that refused to die. For decades, the earth has burned silently. The soil cracks, releasing sulfur-tinged vapor that stings the throat. Pavement buckles like melted wax. Entire streets have vanished under warning signs. Danger, unstable ground. The main highway, once lined with diners and gas stations, is now sealed off. Beneath it, the fire still crawls, invisible but relentless. By the 1980s, the government declared Centralia unsafe. Families left one by one, houses were demolished, mailboxes removed, and maps redrawn. A few residents refused to go, holding on to what little remained, a porch, a memory, a stubborn idea of home. Today, fewer than 5 people live within the official limits, surrounded by fields that breathe smoke. Yet there's something hauntingly poetic about it. Centralia stands as both caution and metaphor, a warning about short-term fixes and the unseen costs of industry. The mine fire began with good intentions, to clean up, but like an unpaid debt, it grew underground, feeding on the fuel of past ambitions. It's the perfect metaphor for the human habit of borrowing comfort from the future. We light fires to stay warm, then watch them consume what we love. Centralia didn't collapse in an explosion. It faded, swallowed by the slow, patient hunger of flame and time. Visitors still come, chasing the surreal image of smoke seeping through the snow, taking photos for social media. But park rangers often remind them, a great photo isn't worth a lung. So when you walk these silent roads, remember, not all ghosts are people. Some are places that never stopped burning, and if Centralia's fire drove its people away, the next town on the list made them flee from something no one could yet name. Number 1. Portlock, Alaska. There's a stretch of coastline on Alaska's southern edge where the fog never truly lifts. Fishermen say it rolls in like a living thing, swallowing the treetops and muting every sound until even the gulls seem afraid to cry out. This is Portlock, or, as the locals once called it, Port Chatham. Once it was just another fishing village, bustling with canneries, laughter, and the smell of salt and cedar smoke. Today, it's a name people in the region lower their voices to say, if they say it at all. At the turn of the 20th century, Portlock thrived on Alaska's riches: silver salmon, deep forests, and the resilience of the Sugpiaq people. But somewhere in the 1940s, the stories began. Hunters disappeared, men returned from the woods pale and trembling. Some didn't return at all. Then came the whispers about something large, something that moved through the fog with the silence of snow. The Sugpiaq had a word for it: Nantinak. To outsiders, it was easier to call it a legend. To those who lived there, it was reason enough to leave. By the 1950s, Portlock was empty. Homes stood abandoned, nets left to rot, boats half sunk in the bay. The mail stopped coming, the fog stayed. Even now, visitors who land their skiffs on the pebbled shore say the air feels heavier here, as if it remembers. The forest looms too close, branches intertwining like fingers trying to hold something back. Every snap of a twig sounds like a question you don't want answered. What really happened in Portlock? Maybe it was the harsh isolation, the pressure of the war years, or the danger of working miles from help. Maybe people simply needed something to name their fear. But legends are sticky things. They grow from silence, from grief, from the spaces where facts run out. Portlock became not just a ghost town, but a symbol, a dark mirror for how societies project their anxieties onto the blank edges of the map. Today, hikers still visit, drawn by curiosity and the eerie beauty of the place. The bay is breathtaking, mist curling around spruce trees, the ocean's pulse steady and cold, but every so often the wind changes direction. The fog presses in, and someone swears they hear footsteps that aren't theirs. Alaska, after all, doesn't sell shortcuts, only survival tests. And if you ever set foot in Portlock, remember one thing: when the forest starts whispering your name, maybe it's time to leave. Not every town that looks peaceful tells a happy story. Across America, beauty often hides fractures between history and memory, between what we build and what we leave behind. Ghost towns, cursed valleys, silent bridges, each whispers something about how the past never really disappears. It just changes shape, waiting for those curious enough to listen. The ruins aren't just reminders of loss, but mirrors of what we fear, deny, or forget. So which town gave you that chill, and why? Was it the fog of Alaska, the burning ground of Pennsylvania, or the rusting swings of West Virginia? If this journey opened your eyes in that hair-raising kind of way, hit subscribe. There are more hidden stories, more unsettling truths, and maybe, just maybe, a few things you'll want to know before packing your bags.